Hello, my name is Julie Bell Lindsay, and I am the Executive Director of the Center for Audit Quality. This panel is entitled Making It Balance, Promoting a Career in the Accounting and the Auditing Profession. Over the course of the next hour, we're going to take you through a documentary that was released in early June, funded by the Center for Audit Quality, or the CAQ, entitled Making It Balance. We're going to talk about how that documentary came to be, where a career in auditing and accounting can take you, and also talk about an accompanying platform to the Roadtrip Nation documentary called Share Your Road, and the value of that for students. Before we get into the meat of the panel discussion, I want to introduce my panelists. I'm going to go alphabetical order. And so first up, we have Sobia Bhatti. Sobia is an associate at Deloitte in Atlanta. She's a 2019 graduate of Georgia Tech, and exciting, she is one of the road trippers, as we call them, that is featured in the documentary. So Sobia, welcome and thank you for being here. Next, we have Chris Earley. Chris is an accounting professor at Providence College in Rhode Island, and until recently, she was the department chair, and prior to that, the associate dean. So thanks, Chris, for being here. Next up, we have Greg Sommers. Greg is a professor of practice and the director of the Masters in Accounting program at Southern Methodist University, or SMU. He also received his PhD from The Ohio State University, and everyone who knows me knows that I am a Buckeye alum, so I never miss an opportunity to say The Ohio State University. Welcome, Greg. You got it. And we also have Brenda Torres. Brenda is the Audit Business Unit Partner in charge of operations at Crowe. Crowe is one of the governing board firms, CAQ governing board firms, very actively participating in a lot of our activities, including she represents Crowe on our talent steering committee. So Brenda, thanks for taking time out of your very busy schedule to be with us. We're going to save about 5 minutes at the end of the discussion for questions. So feel free to be sending your questions into the virtual platform, and we will save time for some of those at the end of the discussion. So just to kind of tee up what I've already referenced, the Making It Balance documentary, in 2019, the CAQ partnered with an organization called Roadtrip Nation to really shine a spotlight on the accounting and auditing profession. It's not going to come as news to any of you that it's really hard to get students interested in accounting and auditing, whether that's because of outdated stereotypes, whether it's because of lack of awareness, or other similar things. And Roadtrip Nation is really geared towards raising awareness about careers for kids who just are trying to answer that question, what do I want to do with my life? So what they do is Roadtrip Nation selects 3 adults who are considering a career in accounting or auditing, and essentially sends them out in an RV across the country to interview, in this case, 12 individuals who were either still in the accounting and auditing profession or had moved on to other careers with their degrees. I should mention here at the start that the CAQ, we did fund the documentary, but we certainly broadcast to our our academic friends the benefits of participating in this program for students, but we did not get to choose the road trippers, we did not get to choose the interviewees, and we also had no editorial say in the final documentary. So with that as kind of a disclaimer, another component of the Roadtrip Nation career exploration website is a platform called Share Your Road. Essentially, this is a platform that allows students to go into it and enter things that they're interested in, and really be able to look up various careers that could add to what they're looking for, as well as provide some, experiences of people who are actually in that profession. So when CAQ first started working with Share Your Road, there were very few, if any, accounting and auditing profiles on Share Your Road, and we have worked to change that, and we'll talk more about Share Your Road towards the end of the panel. So with all of that as background, Brenda, I'm going to start with you and ask, why did the CAQ governing board agree to partner with Roadtrip Nation, and it says, fuel the documentary, essentially fund the documentary.
Yeah, Julie, thank you. And hello, everyone. As a part of the Talent Steering Committee, I think we really looked at this as a unique opportunity to share what I'll call the vast career paths that are available to students who major in accounting and highlight authentic stories of those who've really achieved success in the profession. And Julie, I think you said it well. You talked about, there's certain myths out there about accountants and auditors. You have to be really good at math, or it's a lonely job. You'll be tied to a desk. It's not a meaningful career. Maybe they think you don't have work-life balance. And I really think the documentary provided an awesome forum to really dispel those myths. It was also a way to really focus on a key pillar of our mission, and that was really to reach millions of students with the desired outcome of expanding our pipeline of underrepresented minorities that are entering the profession. We're really looking to expand upon that. So like you said, to make sure that we broaden awareness. And when I think about the documentary, and I've watched it and I'm very passionate about it, it's about really building a career and a life around things that you love. And it provided the road trippers an opportunity to sit down with professionals to share their interests and gain insights into what it takes to find personal success and overcome some struggles.
That's very well said, Brenda. I'm going to turn to you, Sobia, and ask you what I'm sure everybody's wanting to know. Why did you want to do this, to go on the road with two complete strangers? What were you hoping to learn or discover about yourself?
I chose to go on this journey because I was lost. I started off in biomedical engineering and I just didn't love engineering. I was lost a lot of the times with the work, and I had an internship and it was just not what I wanted to do. And so I switched to business. And then when I was in business, I tried a bunch of different concentrations like marketing and finance. And I didn't really enjoy the people that I was with. I left engineering because I didn't want to be around sort of a very pessimistic environment. And I found that environment in some of these other business concentrations. But then when I was in accounting, the classes just kind of clicked for me, and the people were just super nice. And this road trip just kind of proves that we're nice all over. I applied because I wanted to know if what I was doing was right. I too had heard of all of these myths, and towards the end of my senior year, I was really doubting, like, oh, what have I gotten myself into? Let's figure it out. And this opportunity kind of came at one of the best times I could have ever asked for it to come.
That's great. Let's not keep people in suspense. Let's show the trailer for the documentary.
Most of us live in this world of limitation and fear and scarcity. And the thing is, when we live in that place, we live small. If there's one thing I'd be willing to bet money on, it's that 20 years from now, you're probably not going to be where you thought you were going to be.
We're all transitioning out of college, and we all have doubts and fears about what's coming next.
Expectations that my parents had for me was to become a doctor.
When I switched, I was terrified. It was like, how are you gonna?
Jessica emailed me and said, it's looking great, and the trailer is nice and smooth. Nice transition.
Excellent.
So Chris, I'm coming to you next.
I'll unmute myself. I'm ready to go.
Great. I hope everyone enjoyed the trailer. Let's dive back in. Chris, I'm going to come to you next. You have an introduction to the profession course that you teach or you lead at Providence. And I know it includes visits from the largest accounting firms, but it covers more than just that particular career path. Can you talk a little bit about the course, the number of weeks it covers, and similar information?
Sure, thank you, Julie. And I'd just like to say good afternoon to everyone. Yes, at PC, we have a course called Intro to the Profession, and it's taken by all juniors in the fall of their junior year. If they happen to be abroad, they'll take it the fall of senior year. And it introduces them to all aspects of the public accounting profession. We have an active engagement from our alumni who come back and speak at the class. And so it runs over 6 weeks. It's a 1-credit course. It's 2.5 hours each session. And students write reflection papers based on what they've heard. They also prepare questions in advance for the speakers. And we do cover all types of accounting professions. We cover internal audit, government not-for-profit, people who have left public accounting and gone on to other careers. So very similar to the documentary, people come in and share their stories basically and what they've done with their accounting degree.
That's great. Now, you've seen the documentary, obviously. Is this something that you are considering incorporating into your syllabus for that class?
Yeah, we're going to incorporate it. We've already incorporated into the syllabus for this fall, and we're going to actually have students watch it before the first session. And then we have career ed coming in to talk to them about some issues that come up in the video. But we have kind of 2 purposes for wanting to show them the video. One is to talk to them about careers in accounting. And another is the video does a good job of showing them diverse perspectives, which I think our students would benefit greatly from. We have a mostly white student body, and I think they don't often understand where some of their fellow future professionals that are going to work at some of the firms are coming from. So I think it gives them kind of a good broad idea of where people's backgrounds are coming from. The other thing I wanted to say is we have a freshman course it's an advising course, and we plan to show it in that course, and I'm also going to show it in my auditing class to seniors as well.
That's great. We very much at the CAQ, we're encouraging people to use it as much as possible. So that's great to hear. Greg, I'm going to come to you next. What key points from the documentary do you think that students considering a career in accounting and auditing should really give some thought to?
I want to say good afternoon to you all. Glad to have the opportunity to talk about this. I think when I look at the documentary, I think it does a great job of capturing opportunities. And that's one of the things that I think is so critical for students today. We all talk about the fact that we don't know where the profession's going, we don't know where the business world's going, but the fact that there, that's a huge part of it. I also think there's the idea of it's not a one size fits all. You're not locking yourself into something. I had a student at the end of spring, had just finished their master's in accounting and was having panic attacks because they thought they had locked themselves into a particular thing for the rest of their career. Reminded them, pointed to some people a couple of years ahead, showed them the opportunities that they had. So being able to see people who have achieved a wide variety of things, starting from that and knowing that you don't have to have all the answers as you start, I think that was one of the things Sobia and the others showed, is it's okay to go in being concerned, but you'll come out with great opportunities.
And I think that's a key point we're going to talk about a little bit more in depth in a little bit here on the panel. Brenda, I'm going to come back to you. You went straight to Crowe after you graduated from Notre Dame. And while you're still in client services at the firm, your career has taken some interesting turns. So I would love for you to share with the audience some of those interesting career turns that you probably didn't imagine when you first started.
Yeah, Julie, thank you. So just to give some context, I've been with Crowe for 26 and a half years. And when I first started with the firm, I don't even think I knew what to expect out of a career in public accounting, and wasn't sure I saw myself as a lifer at a public accounting firm. And, you know, first and foremost, I've had a number of opportunities to work with different industries. So I'm an auditor, and I've worked, you know, audited manufacturing and distribution companies. I was exposed to clients in construction, professional services, law firms, insurance agencies, even worked on some low-income housing developments. Then I specialized in ERISA plans, so 401ks, defined benefit pension plans, and now I'm actually in the public sector. So I'm actually the signing partner of the largest educator-only pension fund in the world and the second largest pension fund in the United States. And to get to Julie's point, you know, that's a lot about my client service, but things that I've had an opportunity to do that I guess I never imagined. You know, one key item is learning and talent development. So, you know, Greg and Chris, don't judge me here, but developing and delivering learning content in the form of CPE for professionals. I've also been involved in recruiting, both at the campus level and with experienced hire candidates, including today, external partner hire candidates to the firm. I've participated in a number of leadership programs, and I'm now asked to facilitate leadership programs and mentor high performers. And then to speak to kind of the title that Julie spoke to earlier. So gosh, about 6 years ago, our managing partner of the audit business unit asked me to take on a role as a partner in charge of operations. And you might ask yourself, well, what is that? And for me, it was really overseeing the business unit's budget and financial results, all of resource management. So that's the number of resources that we need at various levels and various geographies and the various industries that we serve. And then really managing aspects of human resources. So that would be like our annual compensation and bonus processes, other rewards and recognition, and those sorts of things. And then if that wasn't enough, gosh, a couple of years ago, he added to my plate, and I represent our business unit as a part of our enterprise risk management program of the firm. So I'm in charge of risk management and audit quality as it relates to our business unit. And you know what was really interesting is I didn't always recognize the need for a change. Just opportunities, I guess, found me, and I always said yes and took that risk. And it's just been really, really fulfilling to me to do a lot of those different things that I could have never imagined with a degree in accounting.
I'm not quite sure how you do all of that, but it is quite interesting how your career has developed. Sobia, I'm going to come back to you. You and your fellow road trippers decided who you wanted to interview. Like I mentioned, there were 12 different interviews, and really there's a diversity in the interviewee base. So diversity not only in the types of careers that people you were talking to have or had, but also diversity from, you know, an underrepresented minority perspective. Can you share kind of what you were hoping to learn from this really diverse group of interviewees?
Right. So everything that I had heard was that accountants just go into Big Four and that's it. Like you take your CPA and that's the road you follow. After this road trip and interviewing all of these diverse people, and also during the process of figuring out who we were going to interview, I started to realize that there is just so much more that you can do with an accounting degree. You don't just have to sign up for audit or tax. You can do so much more. I don't want to spoil it, but like there's just so much you can do. And also just being able to talk to a diverse group of people. I feel like there's this stereotype of accounting and who gets to go up to the CEO levels, and just being able to realize that there are plenty of women and people of various different backgrounds up in those positions. It really is eye-opening.
And let's stick with the theme of, you know, auditing is really for people of all different backgrounds. The Making It Balanced documentary really has several inspirational messages for students, as well as students influencers, whether that's parents, high school counselors, and similar individuals, as well as university faculty. Sobia and her fellow road trippers interviewed, like I said, a dozen people, and got some really good advice and insights from them. We're going to show you a few excerpts of some of those inspirational messages. The first clip that we're going to show is with LaVon Johnson, who works at EY in the Financial and Accounting Advisory Services Group. She was able to overcome some substantial hurdles in her life to get where she is today. So let's show the clip with LaVon Johnson.
I'm LaVon. I work here at
So Chris, I'm going to come back to you having seen that clip. LaVon was discouraged from applying to business school by a college advisor. How can professors encourage students to consider a career path where a prior influencer may have suggested it's just too much of a stretch for them?
Thank you, Julie. This is a tough question, and it's one that I and my department have given a lot of thought to. We've had discussions around thinking about the path that students take to be educated in our profession. And I think it goes along with the documentary to say that everyone's path could be different. We have many students that come in, they take their courses in lockstep, they make it through the degree in 4 years, they go on to grad school or not, and they breeze through, let's say, working very hard, but they make it through in a very straight line. But there are other students that don't. And we've talked about as a department that some students take a circuitous route through this and that we can't make assumptions about students when they come in. So we have to build flexibility into our program. We did that actually at our school because we had a very structured program. We did not have a lot of flexibility in the major. So we allowed students to have the opportunity to take courses multiple times to get through them. We have students that minor in accounting and go on to grad school to get their degree. And so we've taken an approach of really counseling everybody to see what their goals are and to try to help them achieve those particular goals for them as an individual. I do think in accounting, we do try to put up barriers to entry sometimes. And I think we have to get out of that mindset and really try to build more flexibility into our curriculum if we can.
I think that's a great point, and I think there are enough barriers to entry, let alone any additional that we would put on. Greg, from your perspective, any additional thoughts to share on this very tough question?
I think that, when you're trying to speak to somebody who may be an influencer and sort of try to address that, that's always a little bit tricky, whether it's a parent or a former advisor or something. But I do think that I believe strongly that we need to let students make informed decisions. Whether they choose accounting or not choose accounting, they've got to have information. And so helping them have the information on what the possibilities are, what it would entail, the different routes, like Chris just said, the different routes through it, I think is a really important part of it. So finding a way to help them sort of see the path that they would take. And as Sobia already mentioned, the people that it will involve. Because one of the things that I think is different is, accounting is all about, let's get through this together. It's not an individual sport, it's a team sport. And so that's going to appeal to certain people and helping people understand whether that might be the right fit for them. But if you give them the information, then they're able to make the best possible decision.
That's very helpful. Sobia, we saw in the trailer, key influencers in your life, your parents, you pursued the career in auditing despite some of the expectations of your family. Can you share with us what kind of drove you to do that?
At a certain point, I realized that I could not go through life just trying to make other people or please other people, because at the end, it would be me who would be suffering. And it took me 3 years in engineering to realize that. And the moment I realized that was my sort of aha moment, that I needed to do what would make me happy, what would get me back on track. And for me, that was making that phone call to my parents and telling them, this isn't what I want to do. So what drove me essentially was my own happiness, my own well-being. And then what drove me further in how to choose accounting was what satisfied me in regards to finding the people, the work itself. It was challenging, but I understood it. And also as well as the outcome in life and how it would set me up in my future as well.
Very wise words. Great perspective. One thing I wanted to mention for the audience is that not all of the interviews that were done by Sobia and her 2 counterparts made it actually into the 50-minute documentary. Matter of fact, the Levon Johnson clip that we just watched is not in the documentary, but it is on the Roadtrip Nation website, which is roadtripnation.com/roadtrip/audit. So there are additional interviews over and above the documentary that may be of interest for you and your students. I just wanted to point that out. So we've talked a little bit about where a career in auditing can take you. Certainly Brenda shared how her career has gone. In the trailer that we saw a few minutes ago, I think, Sobia, you were quite excited to meet Kathy Engelbert. Kathy is the first commissioner of the WNBA. She was, the CEO of Deloitte before she took the position as commissioner. Why was she so high on your list to interview? And just love to hear your perspective on that. I think in the trailer, when you're going like this, it's because you're excited to meet with Kathy. Is that correct?
Yes. So all of us got to pick one person or make a list of people that we wanted to interview. And they told us, dream big. So I chose Kathy Engelbert because she was a woman in my profession who had reached such high heights, right? She was CEO of Deloitte and now is WNBA's commissioner. And I had at the time also signed my offer letter at Deloitte. And I just remember thinking, how cool would it be if I got to meet someone who is essentially my idol, of just being able to go through all of these hurdles that she's been through to make it to where she is and be able to share that story with me. That was just one of my dreams. And so I turned that in. I didn't expect for them to actually get Kathy. It was all actually kind of a little hush hush. And when I found out about it, I obviously lost it. I was ecstatic. I couldn't function. And during the interview, we did the entire interview, but I completely blacked out. I don't remember it because I was just so thoroughly excited to be able to meet an idol that I had just read about so much.
You did not look like you were going to black out. You were very poised and very professional. So just a follow up to you, what advice did you take away from that meeting with Kathy? Did it give you any additional confidence that you were making the right career decision?
Right. So when I spoke with Kathy, I learned a lot about how she got to where she is. And I basically took away a couple of key things. One thing that I learned from her was just don't ever give up. You'll always have people telling you that you can't do something, and it's up to you whether you take it or not. The second most important thing, this one might even be a tie with the first, honestly. She said a quote that really still kind of resonates with me every time I hear it. So I hope that it will with you all too. And the quote kind of goes something like this. So you have a lot of balls in your life, and your life meaning you have family, relationships, friends, health, and integrity, right? But then as you go through your life, you're just kind of juggling them all in the air. And then one day you understand that if you drop a ball, and if you drop the work ball, it's a rubber ball and it'll bounce back. But the other 4 balls, your family, health, friends, and integrity, they're actually made out of glass. So if you drop one of those, they might end up scuffed or even shattered. So that to me was a huge takeaway from her, that, you know, it's okay to prioritize some of these other things that a lot of people in our profession tend to put in the back burner, because those can't be dropped. But your work, you can always come back to, you can always pick that up.
That's very wise, very amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Chris, I'm going to turn to you now. You know, what advice do you share with students who are considering a career in audit, particularly because one of the stereotypes, or one of the things that are talked about, is it's difficult to have that healthy work-life balance with a career in auditing?
Yeah, this is a question we often get from our female students often, and sometimes the male students as well. And in the Intro to the Profession course, I've read a lot of these reflection papers, and there are a lot of students that reflect about this topic in particular. I think most of our graduates understand that the first few years are going to be tough and they're going to work a lot, but they want to think beyond that. How will their life look afterwards? I also appreciated what Kathy said about for a working mother or a working parent, it's not necessarily about having it all, but doing it all. And there is a distinction there. And so I've had this conversation with students as well. I do think things have changed since I came out in public accounting years ago, back in 1990. I do think that, and I have a study on this, that we looked at culture within accounting firms, and it looks like millennials or Gen Z or whatever generation we're in right now, they are having a big influence on how work is being done at these firms. The remote working, well, now we're all in remote working, and I think COVID will have a permanent impact on work from home. And so I think that there are quite a few changes in the profession. I tell my students, you know, if you want to work hard and you have goals, you can make all of your goals happen. And so, you know, I do think that a lot of the stereotypes are being debunked now, and that students are helping, that generation's actually helping drive some change in the profession.
Brenda, I'd really be interested in your take on this, given the career that you have. And Chris, you alluded to, you know, Kathy did say in the trailer, you know, this profession, you can have it all. So just interested in your take on how you can balance that. And in particular, during the busy season in the firms, you know, what steps or what procedures has Crowe put in place to deal with that work-life balance?
Yeah, so kind of going off some of the things that Chris said, I think she teed it up very well. So we're all in the pandemic, and as she stated, you know, everybody's working remotely. But I think Crowe, in addition to many other firms, had already established a mobility policy and a where to work guidelines that really provided flexibility to individuals at all levels so that we can really balance the demands of our personal lives while we're balancing work and serving our clients. That might mean working in an office or a client location, but it also means working at another offsite location or even working from home. The other item that many firms are doing to support this mobile workforce is really investments in technology. And it's not only those investments in terms of how we perform our work and the tools that we use to do the audits, but it's also in how we interact with our clients. So the ability to share information remotely and in this virtual world that we're living in, I really think helps with you balancing. And now everybody's not spending their time commuting or traveling to getting to the office. And so it's amazing how much free time you can get. The other item that is moving forward is a continuous audit. So rather than an audit being what I would call an annual event, We have a continuous audit process where we're really analyzing client information throughout the year. And that does help alleviate the burden of auditing a year's worth of information kind of all at once after that year has ended. And then what's really important is, and I think you talked about, Gen Z or the millennials. So flexibility to me was actually priceless. As I thought about a career in public accounting, anytime I thought about, do I want to do something different? It was flexibility. There's, sufficient time off that you take to take a vacation or just even for your own personal well-being. Take time away for appointments for yourself, time away for volunteer opportunities. So I know, Chris, you talked about, or even Julie talked about women asking these questions, but I think this applies to all genders. I think it's really important in terms of what happens in your personal life and what is really important to you. And Sobia, you talked about your family, your health, your integrity, your friends. All of those things are really important, those crystal balls that we all have to keep in the air. And for me personally, so I've only worked in public accounting for 1 year without a child. So I was a single parent at 22. And even back then, Chris, I wasn't that far after you in terms of starting my career. And even back then, it was amazing what firms will do to work with you and understand your unique situation and how they can be flexible with you. And here I am 26 and a half years later and still there. So they must be doing something right, and Crowe's not alone in those efforts.
That's great. Brenda, you talked about technology. Let's kind of stay with that theme for just a bit. Technology innovation is a major focus right now of the auditing profession, and quite frankly has been for some time, even like you said before the COVID pandemic. Technology has really transformed how audits are conducted, whether, data visualization, data analytics, robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, all these different things that are tools that auditors are now using. Let's go to our next clip. It's Talat Mangla, who is a Director of Assurance Innovation at PwC. And she's also taken an interesting career path to where she is today. So can we see the next clip, please?
I started off college as a
We're doing good on time.
I assume no questions. Julie, are you getting anything on your phone that questions are coming through from the audience at all?
It's coming from Margot's on chat.
Yeah, I'm about to send a couple in.
I was going to say, is that a question, Margot, that you can just send me? I'm not sure if that's a question.
How do you get all faculty to care and champion the profession?
Oh, that is a question. Okay, I got it. This shows how much advisors can make a difference. How do you get all faculty to care and champion the profession? Greg and Chris, that's coming to you when we get to questions. Do we have any more clips? Yeah, we do have one more clip after this. Okay. Greg, you're up next. Thanks very much for that. Greg, I'm going to come to you next. Do you think undergraduate and graduate students see the accounting major as leading to a potential career as an innovator? Obviously, we've heard about how the firms are using technology. And it seems like the young tech-savvy auditors, in the field are looking for better ways to get the quote-unquote job done. How can we collectively message that there's really cool projects out there that are available to those who choose this profession?
Thanks, Julie. I think that's our job. Our job is to get that message out there. That's one of the myths out there. So one of the things I've tried to do is I try to point out what are the leading innovation consulting firms? And most of the leading innovation consulting firms in today's world are accounting. So that led me to say, okay, why accounting? And I think part of it is the accounting firms have realized that there's a benefit internally to going through and having innovation and bringing that in, whether that is data analytics, RPA, whatever it may be. But then also they had the added benefit of being then able to sell it. So there's a twofold benefit to it. So the firms have a big incentive to go out and invest in those items. And they've got this great group of people. They've got large amounts of people. They've got people with diverse interests. I, was at a meeting and was listening to an alum of ours who had an interest in cryptocurrency just on her own. And the next thing you know, she's helping one of the firms lead their cryptocurrency area, even though she's only 3 years out of school, because she had invested the time and the energy to take her passion, combine it with her profession. So I think there's those things out there. And I think we need to lean upon those who are alums and other things, bring them back to tell the story of how the profession is changing and show legitimate, hard examples that it's not just a checklist that it used to be. It's a different kind of thing. And it's all about data. It's all about these different things. And then we need to figure out how to start making changes in our own world, figure out how to include data analytics, how to gather information and do those kind of things. That's always a challenge for all of us as our faculty, is to change how we do things while we're asking the world to change. So we need to be willing to change as well. But we can rely on that and definitely use our alums as a big part of that, because them telling the story of what they're actually seeing out there and how this is happening is going to go a long way to helping students get excited, be interested in exploring, and enter that next phase.
That's great advice from the academic community. Brenda, why don't we turn to you from practitioner perspective? How are firms changing their approach to recruiting to show how technology is being used in the audit? And what skills do you tell potential recruits are most desirable?
Yeah, Julie, I would say that, I would say today we're recruiting for roles that didn't exist 10, 20 years ago. So first of all, we're developing new roles because of what technology and how it's impacting not only the profession, but our clients. I would say, in addition to accounting, education and information systems or technology, data analytics, data science, all of those things are going to be really important. But I also don't want candidates to lose sight of kind of baseline knowledge in other areas that are always going to be important. If I think about that, I would say, objective, critical thinking skills so that you can analyze results, solve problems, identify anomalies. I think project management is really important, working effectively in teams. And then just a general business acumen. If you think about communication, both verbal and written, those are all going to be really, really important. So technology is very important, transformation, innovation. I think, Greg, you did a great job of answering that. But I also think some of the core skill sets are going to continue to be important and relevant as well as we consume all of that information.
Very helpful. Thank you. Now let's talk. We have, I think, one more clip to show. I mentioned earlier that, Making It Balance, the documentary has several inspirational messages. Several of the interviewees also took very circuitous routes to their current destination. Dawn Brolin is the CEO of Powerful Accounting. She knew when she was in high school that she wanted to be an accountant, but she had no idea where that degree would take her. So can we show the clip with Dawn Brolin, please?
I knew when I was 16 I wanted to be an accountant. We had one accounting class in our school. And so we're, doing the ledgers by hand, and we're you have to read, what's happened in the business, and then you record it in accounting. And I said, oh my goodness, this puzzle, first of all those sheets have to match. So there's it's not any kind of a hypothetical where I have to be creative. It had to match, right? And so that was it. I knew I wanted to be an accountant. So I had done bookkeeping, and that got, doing payroll tax returns and stuff was just painful, and it was awful. And I got back in touch with a good friend of mine who's a tax attorney. And he said, hey, I got a case for you. And I'm like a suitcase or a briefcase, or what kind of case? And he's like, well, I have a client who needs their books reconstructed because they're under a civil audit by the IRS. And a civil audit, it's basically they're trying to say, you got to prove to us your receipts. So he said, you want to do a case with me? And I said, heck yeah, why not? And from that moment on, when I started to do that case and I could solve for her and save her tax money and do something that I love, that combination, that was it. If you're not happy in what you're doing, what do you want to have, a miserable life, right? I didn't want that. Don't think you're locked in if you make one decision. You can change. Change your mind. There's nothing wrong with that.
Chris, I'm going to come back to you for the next question. There's certainly a recurring theme that we're hearing from many of these clips, and that is, a degree in accounting can take you many different places. What can universities do? What can the profession do to really hammer home that message that you can really find the job that you love in accounting?
Thanks, Julie. Dawn was by far my favorite in the video, in the documentary. And so I actually, in watching her story, I thought, wow, if I had been exposed to someone like her when I was an undergraduate, I don't think I could have gone into tax because I'm not very good at it. But I think I would definitely have wanted to go the forensic route. And boy, just everything about her is just great. And I would have been very fired up about that career. And so, I just think we need to expose our students to more people like this, whether through this documentary or through your alumni base. We really need to explain to students that there are so many other paths, but actually have these people come talk to them and answer their questions. And interact with them. I do think it can be life-changing. And I've had a number of students who have said to me, I decided the Big Four wasn't for me, and then they get very lost, not knowing what to do then, if that's not the case. So I love her passion, and like I said, if I had been exposed to her as an undergrad, I might have gone down a different path altogether. So that's what I would say. And if you can't engage your alums and you don't have people that in that field, then start with the documentary and then explore the website, because there are a lot of people on there with very different stories and different paths that you could show your students and talk to them about.
That's really helpful. Sobia, I want to come back to you. Can you talk about how the conversation with Dawn maybe resonated with you, especially when she mentioned the importance of pursuing your dream? Oh, you're on mute, Sobia.
So sorry. When she mentioned that, I immediately remember tearing up, because she also mentioned that it was okay and that you don't need anyone else to you don't need to have anyone else there for you to tell you that what you're doing is right, as long as you know what you're doing is right. And that to me was just, huge, because this, like I said at the very beginning, this whole thing was for me just trying to please my parents and see where it goes with them. But she's the one who really told me, it's okay. Just start doing things for yourself.
That's great. Thank you. Greg, I'm going to come back to you. Obviously, your enthusiasm for accounting and auditing is infectious. Having seen the documentary, what key takeaways do you think students would have in watching this? And what do you tell students, and you might have already alluded to this, what do you tell students who are afraid that maybe they're making a mistake in choosing accounting?
I think the biggest thing is that you shouldn't be paralyzed of making the wrong choice. I think Brenda, a couple of minutes ago, listed out all the skills that you develop when you're an accounting major. The critical thinking, the judgment, the decision-making, the communication, the ability to manage and organize information and projects and everything else. Those skills literally can take you anywhere. And so the opportunity set is infinite. The head of undergrad recruiting for the business school always likes to joke with me that the only thing that accounting doesn't prepare you for is being a gymnast. Okay, so apparently we don't do well at that. But other than that, there's not many things that you can't do once you have your accounting degree. And so you're not limiting yourself. You're developing your set of opportunities. So don't be fearful of going down that path. Explore it. Let it lead you to the things that don't yet exist, because you're going to have the skills that have prepared you for whatever's going to come next. So that's why I get excited about it. And pretty much, I try to, get everybody to be an accounting major, including the faculty and all the other departments. So anybody that I can.
Well, thank you for that. Brenda, I'm going to come back to you, hearing what Chris and Greg have said. Obviously you're recruiting, what do you share with students about, if they're afraid of making the quote unquote wrong decision and coming into accounting?
Yeah, I would look at it as each job is really a stepping stone to the next job. So you're going to add to your toolkit, you're going to stretch the skill sets that you already have. I really look at your degree as almost like a foundation on what you're going to build in the future. To me, education, it teaches you how to learn, but you're going to have a number of different mentors and coaches along the way that are really going to help you and find ways to take your passion and align it with your profession. So I just would say, don't be afraid to take risks and try new things. You'll be amazed with what you find and how satisfying it can be.
That's great. Thank you. Sobia, I'm going to come back to you, and then we're going to go into some questions. We have some questions coming into the queue, but just, if you could share anything, what did you learn from this experience, and what would you tell high school students and college students who are trying to figure out what they would do next?
I think the biggest thing I would tell everyone is, one, as a high school student going into a college student, figure out a general area that you want to go and pick your college based off of that. But once you're in that college, I don't know how to stress this enough. Don't just declare a major. And even if you do declare a major, because I know some colleges require that as a part of your application, don't take those major classes. Take one. Don't try to sign up for all of them within your first 2 years, and try to take some other major classes while you're at it. It's okay to waste a couple of credit hours here and there to try and figure it out, but I strongly encourage it. So if you even think you have an interest in engineering versus architecture versus business, take those intro classes. You don't have to have prereqs, just take each one of them, maybe all in one semester or whenever you want. So that way you can really weed out early on. And then my third tip would be get an internship as soon as possible. The sooner you get an internship in the field that you finally decided in, that's when you really find out whether or not you like the line of work that you're doing, and even more if you like the people that you're going to be working with, because generally those are the people that are across all of the industry in your state or region. So those are my top 3 tips.
Well, that's very sage advice. So thank you for that. Let's turn to some of the questions that we have coming in. Maybe on this one, Brenda, I might start with you on this, but obviously open up to any of the panelists. Sobia, I'd be interested in your thoughts as well. Do you think that the move to virtual work is going to make auditing more or less attractive to students?
Wow, Julie, that's a great question. I would tell you, when I look at the less experienced, it might make it less attractive. I think I'm finding in the workplace, people are struggling. They want human interaction, and not that you can't get it through the Zoom and Teams calls and those sorts of things, but it's that connectivity, that in person, where you share a joke or you share a little bit more about yourself. I think what we recognize, and Sobia said it well, you really enjoy the people that you work with, and frankly, you really enjoy your clients. So I think that when you feel like that relationship's a little bit different, it's a little bit tough. But what I would say is going to be unique is, public accounting isn't alone with being virtual right now. Everybody's that way, so we're all having to adapt.
That's great. Any other panelists have any thoughts?
The one comment that I'd add on to that is, I think people who want to work in teams are nice fits for accounting. And so those people are going to feel a little bit more effects of the virtual than somebody who's naturally chosen something because I don't want to be around other people. And so, that's also one of those stereotypes. We all have heard that accountants don't want to talk to people. Wrong. Accountants are the people. I don't know if that's the way I should be saying it. But they are the ones who seek that out. And they do seek out, as Brenda just said, being in that team environment, working together, supporting the cause. So therefore, yeah, there's a little bit of a struggle around that.
Great.
I would just say, Julie, that flexibility is key. I think Brenda brought this up earlier. So I think the fact that you are mostly in person with your teams or at your clients is probably attractive to everybody. But the fact that if you couldn't be there, you could still participate and you could have some flexibility and you wouldn't have to travel as much maybe. Those kinds of things might make it more attractive for some.
Okay, let's go to the next question. This is probably for Chris and for Greg. This whole discussion and the documentary has shown how much advisors can make a difference in students' lives. How do you get all faculty, and this is a big ask, how do you get all faculty to care and to champion the profession?
Chris?
So I'll start just because in my, I was a department chair and an associate dean, and I know for a fact that all faculty aren't always on board and on the same page about everything. I'm lucky and probably very spoiled to be at a school where advising is something that every one of the faculty in my department takes very seriously, and they are very, they have a goal of trying to make sure that the students go down whatever path they want to go, that they can make it and be successful in that path. I would say that if you don't have all faculty on board with this, then you have to, it's either as a leader, develop a culture of that within your department, help them understand what is important to students. I think faculty need to meet students where they are. And if they're unwilling to do that, it's possible advising is not for them. But I think everybody can be a good advisor. And I think it's difficult to motivate faculty sometimes, but I don't know. I think it really, if they really care about their students and their success, it may not be in this profession, but they should try to figure out, what that is and how to help them get there. That's, I think, why we're all in this profession, or we should be.
So I'll add a little bit onto what Chris said. Chris, you were a person driving the bus. I'm farther back on the bus. And so I'm not the driver of the bus. I don't have the ability to drive my faculty, but I do have the ability to try to inspire those around me. I do have the ability to try to share with them the joys of why you would want to be helping those students with that process. Let them know the stories. And so I think we can try to be an advocate for that role of advising students, and in modeling that and taking those opportunities when they come up, how you contribute to your department. You show them how that can be done. So if you're in the person who can make that happen, that's fantastic. But some of us are going to be doing that through, I take on extra roles within my university of trying to be in front of students and modeling that to them. So I do everything from juniors in high school who come to visit the school. If I get my way, they get to hear about accounting and how amazing it will be, to the ones who are the freshmen, to the ones who are the sophomores, the juniors, the seniors, the master students, keeping connected to those alums. All of those kind of things are trying to put together a package that I can then share. And sometimes that's making it easier for those other faculty to be able to have that role.
Helpful. I'm going to just have a brief closing remarks, and then I want to give each of the panelists an opportunity to provide like a takeaway for the audience. By the way, I'm hearing that the third clip, I think it was the third clip, maybe did not run, not everybody heard it. So we're going to show it at the very end after we close out. If people want to see that clip, it'll be shown. But I just want to point out that the CAQ, we have several resources available on Making It Balance, the documentary, on Share Your Road, the platform that I keep mentioning. It's in the presentation gallery for the AAA conference. In particular, there's a university toolkit that the CAQ has put together that we hope that is helpful for all of you in potentially incorporating this into your curriculum, your syllabus for various classes and that kind of thing. I want to stress Share Your Road, the platform. It's a great resource for students to go in, like I said, type in what they're interested in. And, through the efforts of the CAQ, we have well over 100 profiles now. I mentioned at the start, there were very few when we started, and now we have well over 100. And by the way, the academic community, you're a career path too. So, we really encourage you to go in and fill out your road, how you got to where you got to. So take a look at those resources. We have about a minute left, so I'm going to just go around and ask everybody to kind of share a final thought. Maybe Sobia, I'll start with you.
So my final thought is just don't be afraid to explore, and don't be afraid to do things that are out of your comfort zone. It might seem scary, but as long as it makes you happy, that's what you should do. And accounting and audit is a great place to start if you're already looking into it. Like I said, just take that class or just get that internship, and I guarantee you'll fall in love.
Brenda?
Yeah, what I would say is you don't have to have it all mapped out, right? You don't have to have your whole career planned out when you pick that major. There's a lot of opportunities, and Sobia, you stole mine, I think, a little bit, but part of you are the inspiration for this. Have faith in yourself and don't let fear define you. Again, know that others are going to be there to support you and guide you along the way.
That's great. Chris?
Well, what I would say for the educators is what I learned from the video is do not make assumptions about your students, about their abilities, about their goals, about the challenges that they're facing in their life outside of school. It can be quite, the challenges that you all face, Sobia, in this documentary were quite large challenges. So we have to be very careful not to make assumptions about our students.
Greg, I saw you shaking your head to that.
Obviously, yes to all of those. Final thing I would just say is accounting equals opportunities. Keep letting students know that. Keep letting them know that everything but gymnastics would be available to them if they major in accounting.
That's great. Well, I want to thank all of you again for your time and being part of this panel. Thank you very much. And we are going to show the Don Brolin video clip again for those who weren't able to see it earlier. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good evening.
I started off college as a political science major. I really had an interest in public policy and things like that. And my dad is actually a college professor in finance. And so he told, all of his kids, someone please do business, like please. And so, I placated my dad, let me take some business courses. And I had an accounting professor who was just so dynamic that I started to really like it. And I ended up double majoring in accounting and political science. And then, interviewed with all the big four, got offers. And I thought, we'll see what I can do for a couple of years. 13 years later, I'm still here. I grew up in PwC from an associate to senior and a senior manager on different jobs. The current role that I have is I'm a product manager for our assurance practice. And what that really means is, I take the needs of what our auditors are, what tools do they need to equip them in the audit, and how do I build a tool for them? It's been a very different skill set from, just the day-to-day auditing, but it's been really cool. Be willing to hear new opportunities, and even sometimes not knowing what they are, just accept them. Like, don't say no will carry you so far into just wading into new waters.